Hi, we'll get started in a couple minutes. Tomvi just joined us. She's going to be our presenter for today. While we're waiting, does anyone have anything they want to share? Any?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah. Did you want to say something, Jill?
Nope, I was just gonna check and make sure that my earbud was connected, so I can hear you. You can hear me?
Great. And I'm looking at everyone in the meeting. I'm pretty sure a couple of you have not submitted a project topic yet. Most of you have, but I'm going over my list and like two of you haven't yet. No, one of you hasn't yet. So great job on your project topics, by the way.
Caitlin, are you able to enable screen sharing?
Am I the host? Okay, you should be able to share.
Awesome, thank you.
Don't worry too much about the topics, by the way. It's just a reminder because we are providing feedback on every step of the way. And if you get things in on time, then our grading is in sync with what we had planned. But we all know you have lives, you have jobs. It's fine if it's late.
If we submitted our topic as like a Google Doc, do you want it to have edit access for you all or just viewing access?
We're providing our comments through Taurus.
Okay.
So viewing access is fine. If you'd like to give us edit access, that's also fine.
Okay, thanks. Just wanted to check.
And Tomvi's actually going to go over that in a minute, how to get the feedback. I think you can get started, Tomvi.
Okay. Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Hello, everyone. Welcome to week 2 of the fellowship. And thank you so much for all your comments in the discussion posts and reflection posts, and even some of the project work that you have submitted. It's all really exciting and very engaging for us as well to look at those comments and engage in the discussion. So I'll just get started with a few housekeeping things and also talk a little bit about the agenda today. First, I'll be going through the fellowship structure, a little bit about the housekeeping and where to access some of the project feedback and some of the work that you all might be confused about. And then the second thing is the discrete math primer case study. I'll be going through a case study about how we improved upon a course at CMU. The third one is discussion of different frameworks and taxonomies. This is related to all the readings that you have done this week, and also related to the discussion posts that you all have made this week. And then we are going to go ahead and write some learning objectives for your project topic, and then also work on improving the project learning objectives. For all those who have not submitted their project topic, that's fine. We can still like just get started with a set of learning objectives and then come back to submitting the project topic. So for the fellowship structure, I know that many of you had added comments in the reflection post, and also I think Jill had mentioned within the office hours that some of the deliverables are not very clear. So I just wanted to make sure that everyone is able to, so the deliverables are mainly available on the syllabus page, and we request you to look at the syllabus page every time you're like thinking about going through the course materials and doing the weekly submissions. And so give me a minute while I pull up the syllabus page. And as you can see, like there are a bunch of topics that are formatted in the way of weeks, or written like by week. But then we also have submissions and the whole course structure to be in the form of units. So some of the weeks and units are I would say not off, but I would say like misaligned with the numbers. And so I would highly recommend that every time you're like referring to the syllabus page, to look at the assignments and the due dates for guidance on when to submit what and where to refer to. All these units are basically units within the OLI Taurus course. So once you enter your Canvas course, which is over here, I request you not to go into the discussion activities immediately, but go into the OLI Taurus course. Within the OLI Taurus course, once you're within the course, you all can look at each of these units and go through them based on what is there, what is due for that week. But then for the discussion activities, we have direct links to the discussion activities as well within the Taurus course. So for example, this is module 2, but we have the discussion activity over here in unit 1. And just by clicking on unit 1, I'm going to view it as a student. You'll be able to see that we have a link to the discussion post in Canvas. So instead of referring to Canvas from the beginning, I would recommend that you go into the Taurus course and then be directed towards the discussion post in Canvas. Angela has her hand up, I think.
I think you might have answered it accidentally because your view looked a lot different than mine. You were an instructor view.
That's correct.
Yes. Okay. Yeah, I'm having, what you're explaining is useful because I'm having a really difficult time navigating back and forth, and somehow everything I do takes me to that chat. And I don't want to be in the discussion board. I want to find the content to read. And I've been having a really, really difficult time navigating it. So hopefully I can try to navigate around that, but I don't know what I'm doing. It just keeps taking me back to the chat all the time, everything I do. The
No, I think,
discussion
and
board,
that's a
not the
fair
chat.
point.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's a fair point. I think it's also based on the structure, but also a little bit to do with, we have not gone through this before. So I wanted to make sure that we go through this. A lot of the course that we have structured is within the OLI Taurus course and not in that discussion post. Those discussion posts are only for the discussion activities where we are reading the readings from this Taurus course and then going in and posting what our thoughts are or reflections are over there.
Thank you.
Awesome. And then again, like coming back to this table, assignments and due dates, we have everything formatted up week by week and based on due dates. So in general, if you like look at the structure of this assignments and due dates table, you'll be able to see that for each week there are usually 2 due dates, and that is one is on Tuesday, that is the day of the class. We have the discussion activities, the readings, and the end of unit survey and reflections for the previous week due. So the discussion activities are due for like the new units, but the unit reflections and surveys are due for the previous week. And then we also have some other material to go through depending on the week we are in. And then the second due date during the week is on Saturday, and that is for the project work. So for the first week, it was, submitting the project topic. Second week, it's the project learning objectives. Third week, it's the project assessments, so on and so forth. So again, and if we do make updates to this table, we will definitely be notifying you either by Canvas or by email. Any questions with regards to this assignments and due date table or navigating the course in general? Awesome. So yeah, and we are also like, they're available during office hours in case you all are having any issues with navigating through any of this. Office hours are on Friday from, I think, 3 p.m. to 4:30 p.m. or 5 p.m. So please feel free to drop in. And I'm talking about 3 p.m. Eastern time. And then I also wanted to talk about viewing feedback for all the project work. So for everyone who submitted their project topic, I think we have gone in and provided some feedback for you. What you can do is go into the page where you have made the submission, and over there you'll be able to view the feedback that we have provided. It is not required for you to do a resubmission or like based on the improvements that you make or based on the feedback that we provide. But we encourage you to think about the feedback that is provided and accordingly make some changes within your project scope. And again, if anyone is not able to view their project feedback, please let us know and we'll be able to help with the same as well. And then about project scoping. So the scope of the project is, as we decided, like we spoke about earlier, it is a 2-hour unit or a 2-hour course. And so it doesn't have to be very long. We recommend somewhere between 3 to 5 learning objectives for this project 2-hour unit, but obviously it can go a bit longer, a bit shorter, depending on what your project topic is, or what you plan to teach. And then also a little note about participating during sessions. It's okay if you all are not able to participate like by talking during the session, but if you all want, we invite you to also participate on chat, raise your hands, but also, like as we said, it's not required for you to like participate by talking during the session.
Speaking of which, we actually have a comment in chat. It says, I'm curious as to why the content we submit via Taurus isn't listed in the assignments section in the platform.
That's a good question. And the answer to that is because it is not a graded assignment as of now. And that is just something to do with the technical capabilities of Taurus. Anything that is a graded assignment is listed as like within the assignment section. And so for now, like, because it's not a graded page, because we are providing formative feedback to those assignments, even though like we are doing some grading on the back end, it is not visible on the assignment section.
And then Angela asks, can you demonstrate where to find the feedback? For instance, can you show this for the topic assignment? I think we are going through that. And then I also wanted to add before we went on from housekeeping, if any of you want Taurus to have a very specific capability that we currently don't have and you feel very strongly about it, we're constantly open to receiving user feedback and user suggestions, and I can work quick to put that in the resources section of the Taurus course. If you really, really want to submit a feature request, you can do that via our GitHub or reach out to one of us. So since we were talking about that, I figured I'd throw that in there.
Yeah, that's a great point. Do let us know if you think that there are features which are not making sense. As Alex mentioned, this is a relatively new development effort from our end. We have the OLI legacy platform with all the features already present, but the Taurus platform we've been developing since I think 3 years now. And so some of the features are not fully developed. We are still working on developing those. So do let us know if you think there are features that would be good to have or needed within the platform. And then moving to like how to look for feedback. I'm gonna try this because mine is an instructor view. It might not show up, but I'm going to still try and open it as a student and see. But we go to like the page where you have submitted the project topic and submitted the file, and this is where you should be able to view your feedback. I'm going to wait for a minute or two to allow you to do this and let me know if you're able to see the feedback.
There is a way to see it as one of the students if someone would like to volunteer us to look at your feedback.
You can use mine.
That was Allison.
Yes, yes, Allison Brown.
Do you mind if I take the screen share, Tommy?
Sure.
Okay.
Caitlin, while you do that, we have that Kristen doesn't see any feedback on her submission, neither does Beth.
Okay, so this is, sorry, Allison Brown. We can go take a look at each of her pages. We go to her progress, and it should be, what was the name of the page? It was
Project topic.
project topic. Pick your top. There it is. So you go to the page, and you can see that this is what Allison would see. And before, she had submitted a Google Doc, and that just said thank you. And now that it's graded, she can see the detailed feedback that we have given. So basically, the answer is to just go back to your page that you submitted the project on, and there will be feedback now that you can see from the instructors.
This is super helpful. Thanks, Caitlin. Are you all able to view the feedback as Caitlin demonstrated?
All right, I see feedback not showing from instructor view, but I can see feedback for my submission on the student view of the account, and then we have that Kristen doesn't have feedback on this page, and Beth also says she's in student view but can't see the feedback.
I don't think we got to grading Kristen's project yet, and same with Beth. We looked at the projects yesterday, and they weren't submitted yet. So we'll provide feedback as soon as we can.
Thank you, Caitlin.
You submitted Friday. Okay, that's weird because we looked at them yesterday.
I'm pretty sure I submitted feedback today.
I'll take another look at Kristen's then.
Awesome. While you're doing that, I'll start screen sharing for the presentation. Okay, give me a minute. I'm just trying to screen share. Next, I'll be talking about the discrete math timer case study. Within CMU, we have a large computer science and engineering cohort of students, and we know that CMU, the computer science course is challenging. We know that students come from different levels of backgrounds and schools, and there is not much there is not a lot of information about the varying math levels for the students. So we had some prior knowledge surveys administered before the class commenced, and we asked them about their prior knowledge in math, and then we found that there were some students who struggled a lot with discrete mathematics that was needed within their courses in the first semester. And so OLI worked with the Eberly Center of Teaching and Learning, which is the teaching and learning center at CMU, to come up with a solution for that would help level the students up when they actually join the program. And we decided to design like short set of modules instrumented within OLI, which were like basics of discrete maths, These modules were self-paced and interactive modules that required students to go through the courses before joining the program. And these modules delivered lots of practice opportunities for the students. And we also ensured that we were instrumenting the course so that we were also collecting data about student performance while students were going through the course. We developed introduction pages, pages that were targeting student motivation, and we also added pages which were supporting growth mindset or instructions about growth mindset. And then as the course was delivered for the first time in 2016, it was required by all incoming computer science students. And not only did the results show that, I'm sorry, did the, okay. Not only did the results show that students were improving in their post-test scores, but it like showed exception. It gave us data about areas where students were doing well, students were not doing well. And we discovered that logics and sets were areas where students were doing well, but functions was an area where students were not doing so well. The figures that you see on the right-hand side are learning curves, which we will be going through, I think, during week 4 or week 5 of the course. And so I wouldn't, I recommend you all don't stress about it. These learning curves on the right-hand side are targeted towards each of the skills within the course. And they show what we cannot necessarily just see with the raw data. And for the curve above, you can see that the line is going up, which means that the error rate is going up even as the practice opportunities for the students increase. And the one on below, you can see that that's a good learning curve where the error rate goes down as student opportunities increase or students practice more of that skill. But I will talk a little bit more. If you all are not getting that right now, that's fine. We can talk a little bit more about it during week 4. Do not stress over it. So basically, we found that functions was an area where students were not doing well in. And so what we did is we added some refinements within the course. We implemented more practice opportunities for functions. We added some new and better assessments within the course. And the data collected over summer 2017 showed significant improvement than what was there before. It was still not a whole lot of improvement, but it was still better than what we saw in 2016. And then what we did further is in subsequent iterations of the course, we added more of open-ended problems, and we added CTAT tutors, which are nothing but like cognitive tutors, which adapt towards the student performance at each step. And we'll talk a little bit about cognitive tutors later during the program. But these are basically adaptive tutors, which provide detailed hints and feedback to students based on their performance at each step of the problem. And so we incorporated these tutors and for the course, and the data we saw was great, and we saw dramatic results where you can see for the functions module, there has been a significant improvement in the 2018 version of the course. This is a success story of using an OLI course, but also using the whole learning engineering methodology, where you can improve the course based on the data at every iteration of the course. And it's okay if the data is like, if the course is not improved in one go, but at each iteration we kept on improving and adding things, so that student there is increase in student performance. And we also saw that we were getting targeted data on areas where students were not doing well. Now, talking about backwards design, this is the concept that I think most of you are already familiar with and use a lot within your practice as well. I think where we start, it's a practice, it's a method where we start off designing the instruction by thinking about the learning objectives first, then the assessments, and then the instruction. This basically helps us create a more intentional design. But our view on the backwards design is a little bit different, where along with goal setting, assessment design, and instructional design, we also add pieces of data at each step of the design. We refer to some of the theory while designing for instruction, or building models for designing for instructions. We also refer to data um, while designing models, and those models help in, again, designing instruction and assessments. Finally, when the whole course is implemented, we again use the data that we have, data related to student performance, to see how we can improve the overall design of the course. Now, moving on to the next topic, which is Bloom's taxonomy. I think a bunch of you are already using this within your practice again, and have also added comments about using Bloom's taxonomy in your discussion posts. So that's great. As you know, Bloom's taxonomy like organizes kinds of learning objectives based on knowledge and also associated assessments. There is an older version of Bloom's taxonomy, which is talking more about the levels of based on cognitive like levels of understanding, applying, remembering, and then all the higher levels, which are creating, evaluating, and analyzing. But then we also have the newer version, which is more focused and more related to the CLE framework, which is the knowledge, learning, and instruction framework. And that's the paper that you all had read this week, in specifying different kinds of knowledge. And over here, again, we are using verbs and being much more intentional about the kind of cognitive processes we want to add within our learning objective. There is again knowledge, comprehension, application, analysis, synthesis, and evaluation. Both these versions of Bloom taxonomy can be mapped to each other. It's just that the latest version is the one that we are using more of because of the verbs that are there in here. Okay, the CLE framework. And I think this is the framework where, based on all your discussion activity, comments, and posts, we figured that there is too much jargon in this paper, and we agree to that. But we also think that some of the concepts in this paper might be relevant in your practice, or might be helpful in your practice when you're thinking about designing for particular skills or particular knowledge components. Some of you also mentioned that some of you are already using it in your practice in conjunction with other frameworks. I'm going to pause here and invite anyone to comment, participate, or elaborate on what they might have to say about the CLE framework. Or again, it's not a compulsion, but feel free to chime in about your thoughts, reflections, or anything that you might have missed, adding to the discussion posts over here. Awesome. I'll keep moving. So basically, the synopsis of CLE framework is understanding the intent of the learning objectives, or what we are trying to design for, and then based on the intent of the learning objectives, we design for, like, we pick appropriate assessment events or learning events. As you can see in this diagram, this is one of the initial diagrams of the CLE framework, where we have instructional events, assessment events, learning events, and knowledge components. And you can see, like, the ones in rectangles are the learning events and knowledge components, which are unobservable, but like they are inferred, but the instructional events and assessment events are the ones that are observable. And so we can see that instructional events and assessment events that are observable are like changes that can be controlled by either an instructor or instructional designer or even an experimenter. And they are intended to produce learning activity. So you can see this learning events over here. And they can be like, these learning events basically cause changes in the knowledge components within a student's mind. And these knowledge components are in turn inferred. We can infer that the students have acquired the knowledge components by their performance on assessments. Assessment events involve like student responses to the test items, or sometimes they can also be embedded within the context of instruction. For example, if there is a tutor which is a part of the instruction activity, or there are like self-explanation questions within instructions, so on and so forth. Another thing is, we define a knowledge component as an acquired unit of cognitive function or structure that can be inferred from performance on a related tasks. And over here, you can see that learning events and knowledge components are inferred, and they are not directly observable, but they're observable through the assessment events and even the instructional events. Awesome. And then the synopsis of the CLE framework is that the processes of learning can include both simple associations and more complex associations that result in the KC changes of three broad types. There is memory and fluency building, there is induction and refinement, and there is understanding and sense making. These learning processes can proceed more or less independently, or sometimes in synchronicity with one another. This figure shows performance time performance time learning curves for three different kinds of knowledge components. And they show that how complex knowledge components take longer to perform than less complex knowledge components. So as you see on the x-axis, there is opportunity to perform the knowledge components. That is, those might be like the assessment items. Each of these opportunities are basically assessments for that particular knowledge component. And then on the y-axis, you see average time for correct performance. And you see the blue one is a geometry area KC, or Yeah, and the pink one is where students had to like uh, identify which English article goes before a noun. And the one in green was a Chinese vocabulary Casey, where students had to recall what what words go with for what Chinese words go for what English words. And so, as you can see that the less complex cases, that is the one of recall, is taking the lowest time to get for students to get correct. But the ones where students have had to make some induction and sense making, that is the geometry area cases where they had to solve problems on geometry, that is taking more time for them to get correct. So one thing that this tells us is that rather than assuming variability like within a whole domain, uh, that means that to say that math itself is more difficult as compared to English might be wrong, but to say that some cases within math, which are also similar to like other cases within, say, English, are overall more difficult than cases which are related to just recalling. For example, like just recalling formulas in math is similar to cases where you're recalling English language words or like synonyms. And so those are like less complex as compared to like principles or facts, principles which are more complex. In this table, you will be able to see that there are different types of cases and examples of different types of cases based on the application condition, the response of the student, and then what and examples of what they might be. Excuse me. So, for example, a relatively simple case is the one with Chinese vocabulary where there is a constant application condition. That means that students are given a word, say for example, sun, and they're asked to translate it into Chinese, which is again a constant response. And so this is a example of constant casey. Similarly, there are different examples given here in this table of variable constant cases, variable cases, constant variable cases, so on and so forth within different domains. For example, second language, mathematics, and science. Within the CLE framework, however, focuses on knowledge components that students acquire and not on the domain, the learning processes involved, and the instructional methods used. Simpler constant cases that you can see over here. Example, historical facts, vocabulary, perceptual categories, concepts, may imply instructional approaches that emphasize recall and instructional practices such as spacing, tutored practice, and optimized scheduling for practice. Um, Again, a KC has a constant condition when there is a single unique pattern to which the KC applies, and a variable condition when there are multiple patterns to which it applies. Example, features or features that can take on different values. Paired associates and examples are constant condition cases, whereas categories, rules, schemas, or principles are variable condition cases. We emphasize that all cases, even the simple facts, are not directly observable, and multiple assessment events are required in order to say that the student has acquired the KC. Or so for us, like for example, when we are designing a course, just by one particular assessment event, we might not be able to say that the student has acquired a particular skill or knowledge component, but we need multiple instances of assessments in order for us to verify if the student has acquired the skill or knowledge component. Again, variability in the timing of assessment events and the kinds of performance metric used are also important. Success on an assessment event that is directly provided after an instruction gives some initial evidence of acquisition of the KC. That means that even like just after the student has gone through the instruction and they are doing an assessment event, we might be able to say that the student may have acquired the KC, but it is better to say that the student has acquired a KC when there is a delayed assessment event. That is when we administer the assessments after some time of the instruction. Again, these are other types of cases where there is variable constant cases are ones in which category recognition rules like many to one mappings like grammar rules apply. For example, artificial grammar rule learning has many to one mapping, like English article selection for when do we use the, when do you use a, when do you use an for a noun. Again, is like a variable constant kind of KC. We also have variable kinds of cases that probably require even more like higher levels of instruction, which include comparison, blocking, and more worked example study. Integrated variable cases to be learned in both non-verbal and procedural declarative form. Example, math and science principles imply instructions that prompt for self-explanation, or even like for students to be able to create some more artifacts before rather than just like a recall question. Cases with rationales. Yeah, the fourth kind of KC is cases with rationales. That are not conventions but reflect discoverable principles, imply instructions that include classroom argumentation and instructional dialogues. The table you see over here relates to three kinds of cases, to the three broad category of learning processes. So within the paper, Ken and Neil also talk about three broad kinds of processes. I think these are understanding and sense making, induction and refinement, and memory and fluency building. So again, memory and fluency building are like non-verbal learning processes involved in strengthening the memory and compiling knowledge, producing more automatic and composed knowledge recall. Fluency building can be conceived as making the link between condition and response of a KC more direct, more consistent, and more resistant to interference, as well as making the response execution faster. Induction and refinement learning processes are nothing but like non-verbal learning processes that improve accuracy of knowledge. They include perception, generalization, discrimination, classification, categorization, schema induction, and casual induction. We classify these as non-verbal because although they are often supported by verbalizations, they do not require it. That means that the student does not have to necessarily explain why these processes are taking place when they are performing the assessments. These processes modify the conditions or responses Example, which response satisfy a variable response type KC. These processes refine a KC, making it more accurate, appropriately general, and discriminating. And the third category is understanding and sense making. This is more explicit, verbally mediated learning, in which students attempt to understand or reason a particular KC. This includes comprehension of verbal descriptions, explanation-based learning, scientific discovery, and verbal role-mediated deduction. Sense-making can be conceived as linking non-verbal with verbal forms of knowledge. This table shows different types of learning processes and some of the instructional principles which have been used for each of these learning processes, and a description of those instructions. Again, this is just a reference. Some of these instructional principles have been studied and proven to be effective. So you can see the reference examples on the rightmost side of the column. And again, possible correlation between the complexity of knowledge components that you can see over here, which is facts, rules, and principles, and the complexity of instruction, that is memory, induction, and refinement, and understanding and sense making, is shown over here in this figure. And you can see that for which of these cases, like for example, for facts, what kind of instruction might be most helpful or most effective. And the plus signs that you see over here indicate corresponding instructional principle that has been experimentally demonstrated to enhance robust learning efficiency for the corresponding kinds of cases. And 0 indicates an experiment found no difference in learning, and an empty cell indicates absence of relevant experiments. So again, this is an invitation for all of you to probably try experimenting some of these and even like do some A/B testing within our platform. Okay, I'm going to go on to the next topic, which is ICAP. Oh, before I get into that, for the CLE framework, the questions are like, CLE claims that different knowledge processes are needed for different learning processes are needed for acquiring different knowledge components. And so does this mean that different learning processes are needed for different domains? And are kinds of cases necessarily different between domains? Again, the answer to this is no. Cases are independent of the domain, and the same learning processes may be employed across different domains because each domain may have facts requiring recall, skills requiring induction, and principles requiring some sense making. So each of the domain that you all design for, whether it be math, science, language learning, each of them have these different categories of cases. Moving on to the ICAP framework. Again, this framework is about making learning as active as possible. This one is much more simpler than the 40-page paper that is there with the CLE framework. But again, it's something more similar, much more logical, where we can agree that like interactive learning is much more efficient than active learning, which is much more efficient than passive learning. So to make sure that your learning this is again like in relation to your creation of learning objectives. You want to make sure that the learning objectives are more active. You want to make sure that the models that you design draw on to create the best possible online course. And I have taken some of the discussion posts that you all posted on the Canvas activity, where you all were talking about how ICAP or any of the models that you have learned or read uh, apply to your practice. And I read that I think Colleen had used ICAP within their accounting course, and to for even students to use QuickBooks Online. And so that's super interesting. And then I think Allison also wrote that they are using the ICAP model within their class, and co-inferring is a step that they are having a hard time integrating, but plan to integrate more within their class. Any other comments or additions you all want to make about the ICAP framework that you've read, or even questions? Okay. So I'll quickly go through this. I know we are at time to even start writing our learning objectives, but this framework basically consists of a taxonomy of 4 modes of activities. Their definition and assumptions hypothesized knowledge change processes and result in changes in knowledge show that engagement behaviors can be categorized as into 4 modes, which is interactive, constructive, active, and passive. And the ICAP hypothesis predicted that students become more engaged with learning materials from passive to active to constructive to interactive. And as students become more engaged, their learning across these 4 modes, their learning will increase. And this was proven to be the case in this study. This is a figure showing the pre and post test performance by different modes of engagement. The study was done in a lab that included all 4 modes of engagement in the domain of material sciences, and it's supported the ICAP hypothesis and showed that learning improved significantly at a rate of around 8 to 10% across each mode. So now, moving on to writing learning objectives, which I think a lot of you all reflected on the ABCD methodology within the discussion activity. You all mentioned how you all appreciate the methodology, but I think the degree or the D within the ABCD methodology is something that is not always incorporated within practice. You all also, there was also a comment from Jill, I think, about participants, examples of ABCD methodology, I think, which was really nice. And how she's incorporating the D also within the ABCD within the D within ABCD within her practice. So that is cool. Any other comments about, so to address some of the things that came up during the discussion about the ABCD methodology, it is okay if y'all are not addressing all the 4 elements within ABCD. Obviously, if you are able to address all the 4 elements, then that is a best practice. But then even if y'all are able to get to like 3 of these elements, I think that is considered good practice. It doesn't matter the organization of the learning objective based on A should come first, B should come late after A, so on and so forth. It can be in any format, but we make sure that all the 4 components are addressed within an ideal, like, best learning objective. At the same time, if you're not able to have like the degree or the D defined within your learning objective, that is fine as well. As long as um, you're thinking about the behavior that the students will be displaying while learning those activities, and also the condition. I think basically it just makes everything much more specific, measurable, observable for instructors, instructional designers, everyone to be able to measure student learning. Again, this is an example of a learning objective with the ABCD methodology, which is also there within the reading. So you all can refer to the reading for more examples of how these learning objectives are how the ABCD methodology is used for creating these learning objectives. I also wanted to bring to notice that there are many other frameworks that folks used for developing learning objectives, like the SMART goals. ABCD is one of them. There is also SOC, student-centered, observable, and calibrated, which is there in the learning objectives module within the Taurus module. Again, that module is optional for you to go through. But again, these are all some frameworks that are used by learning designers, learning engineers, and practitioners within the field. As you can see that there are specific correlations. Measurable is the same as what kind of behavior we want to see within ABCD. And then even it is the same as observable. It's similar. Basically, there are parallels between each of these frameworks. Awesome. Now let's start with working on your learning objectives. So I want you to pull up your any document, either a Google Doc or a Word document within your system, and start drafting learning objectives for your particular project topic. We'll probably take 5 minutes for the same, and feel free to ask any questions. And then the rubric for learning objective that we want is the objective should be written effectively. That means that it should be stated as clearly as possible. It should be student-centered. That means it should be written from the student's point of view and what the student is going to be learning. It should be observable and measurable, again, using verbs that are measurable. You all can also refer to the Bloom's taxonomy that I had earlier referenced. And then calibrated. The learning objective should be calibrated to the student's prior knowledge, experience, and motivation. I'm going to probably give 5 to 10 minutes for this, and also take in any questions that you all might have for this.
I have a question for the room, and you can just raise your hand. How many people are ready to start their learning objectives? We got one. Okay, we got a few people. Okay. Great. Oh, someone already has them done. I think maybe we should sort people into learning objectives, not learning objectives, breakout rooms based on this. Didn't you say you wanted to do breakout rooms, Tomby?
Yeah, but I was also hoping to give people who like have not had the time to write learning objectives to take some time and write learning objectives right now.
Yeah, that's why we sort them into breakout rooms. The people who are ready can go into one breakout room. The people who have them done can go into another. Actually, they probably should stay here. And the people who are absolutely not ready can go to a different room. So that seems like opening 2 rooms.
Sure,
Allison Brown asks, how many learning objectives do you recommend for our project module? And in general, we recommend 3 to 5 for this scope.
Thanks, Asha. So I don't have access to creating breakout rooms. Caitlin, do you have access?
I think I must be the person. Okay. Let participants choose rooms, create 2 rooms. Okay. So, when I open these rooms, room number 1 is going to be for people writing their learning objectives. Room number 2 is for people who are not ready to write their learning objectives. And the people who are done can stay in this room. And then Jill asked in the chat, are there overall project is 2 hours in delivery length? That's right. And we should also break up. Tom V, would you like to go to room 1?
Yes. And room 1 you said is
The people who are writing them today.
okay.
Then I'll go to room 2. And then Sasha, would you like to stay in this room?
I'm happy to go where I'm needed, so that works.
Yeah, why don't you stay in this room?
And then Sasha, if you can also just pull up the rubric if possible. Sasha or Alex, any of you can just pull up the rubric and keep the rubric in hand if any questions come up.
Hi there.
Hello.
So this is the room for people not ready to write their learning objectives yet. And I'm addressing questions or providing feedback if you need it. So why are you in this room? The room that's not ready.
Because I haven't even put my idea up yet.
Well, that's a good reason. You want to talk about your idea in person?
We can. So to give you some context, for many years, my team, and we're a team of instructional designers, we have been hands-on course development with faculty partners. So basically we function as consultants. Well, a change in ideas, and also because a lot more of our faculty are coming in with the skill sets needed. As far as the technical aspects and some of the basic concepts on what they do, we're going to a faculty professional development model. So my idea has actually been, what are some, an idea of quick tips and tricks on what faculty can do to start adding components within the context of diversity, equity, and inclusion in their courses. So maybe it's just taking one assessment. How do you reframe that? That's just one aspect of it. I think I'm looking at it more broadly, how to add diversity, equity, and inclusion to your online class. So that's kind of my starting point. And again, thinking of it more as what they can do quickly, because I see this as 4 workshops, probably no more than 45 minutes apiece. But it can also, and then eventually being offered as a self-paced. So yeah, I have a concept.
I think it's a very strong concept. I think, so you're talking about having it as kind of like a series of workshops.
So it's thinking about it, for example, just helping them understand what the concept of diversity, equity, and inclusion, the concept and what it might look like in an asynchronous online course. Because again, some of our faculty maybe not have thought of that yet. And I feel I can say this, some of our older faculty may not be thinking of it in that lens.
You have a full fleshed out concept, honestly. What you
Um,
said right now was your audience. It's for faculty, especially those who have not thought about it.
yes,
And then the mode is online instruction and
I initially it will probably be four, like I said, 45-minute-ish workshops. And eventually put into a self-paced
okay, so
short course.
for the purpose of this fellowship, we are encouraging it to be on the OLI platform, or rather,
Yeah,
encouraging
yeah, and I look at it from the perspective of my plan to do this anyway, and the plan for my team and I is to actually use our LMS. But no, for this course, of course, I would use Taurus, but using our own LMS to have the supplemental materials anyway. And some of those pieces, and that'll just make it easier for us as we think about the self-paced version.
So what I was going to suggest is think of it kind of like the materials you've been seeing for the fellowship program. And you can have those examples and you can have the activities that you work through on that asynchronous platform.
Right. So, like I said, it's helping them think about that concept, but it's also, helping them maybe identify some strategies they can quickly implement. That's about as far as I've gotten, but also thinking, helping them just wrap their heads around this. And, I know there's materials out there, and goodness knows I have enough already, because this was supposed to be a project for something else.
Okay, so why don't you start writing that up?
Mhm.
Have a few more people in the room.
Yeah.
Else want to talk about why they're not quite ready yet? Or
I can say mine's just a time issue because I'm teaching a class in addition to teaching an asynchronous online course in addition to my full-time job, and they had an assignment due on Sunday. So I've been grading.
okay, well, you can use this time to work on that proposal, or you can start writing the learning objectives after that.
Yeah, I'm in a similar boat. I just thought they weren't due till Friday, so I've been doing other stuff.
So just use this time.
Okay.
Yeah, and they are not due till Friday. This is just an initial iteration that we are starting with.
Yeah, and for some of us, yesterday was a holiday.
That's true.
And and some of us took advantage of it.
Yeah, and I chose the not ready just because I want to dive more into the readings to inform writing them, just because I'm not as practiced at writing learning objectives, because I don't have an instructional design background. And so I just, just felt like I want to do some more background stuff before I like dive in and do the actual content.
Are there any points of confusion that you have? Or just you need more practice? You need more time to digest?
Yeah. And I was I was just looking at the feedback. And so you guys had provided some recommendations about like limiting the scope and stuff like that. And so it was kind of like, oh, I need to mentally adjust. I need to kind of go back and look at my topic and my scope, and then look at my learning objectives. And so it was kind of like, there are a couple prep activities. Yeah.
But yeah, like don't get overwhelmed by any of that, as like it's just an iterative process. So at any point, if you're like feeling a little behind or any of that, feel free to ask us any questions. And again, it's an iterative process, so it's okay if it's like not perfect.
Thank you.
I'm looking at yours right now. For the scope, you suggested basically 3 topics, and I think you can still cover all 3 topics, but just choose one of them to really go more in depth on, and then be a little bit more light on the other 2 topics. because it is a lot to have all three in one module, one course.
Yeah, I like that suggestion. Yeah, so I think I'll focus on the open licensing aspect and do more general overviews of the copyright and open education as a whole.
You have about 10 minutes left to work. I'm gonna hop into the other rooms to tell them that.
Thank you.
By the way, Laura's here if you have any more questions. You have about 10 more minutes to work. Just popping in to tell you that.
Thank you.
Okay, all right. All right, great. So we're gonna do peer discussion of the learning objectives. So would people prefer to pair up or something like that, or would people prefer to put it up on screen or in the chat for everyone?
I think
It might be nice.
So in the chat, Allison said her learning objective is starting as explain the basic principles of purposes of the basic principles, purpose, and limitations of copyright in the US. And you think that's too broad? Why do you think that?
I'm just wondering if I'm packing too many concepts into one objective. Like it's when I was like thinking through the things the overview of what I would like them to walk away with in terms of knowledge about copyright. That's what I was thinking of basic principles, why it works that way and what are the limitations. I don't know, maybe now that I'm thinking about it, talking through it, it seems more doable.
The way I like to think about it is through data. And if I were to measure, would one question about basic principles give you the same information as a question about the limitations of copyright? And if you think that answer is yes, it can be in the same learning objective. But if you think the answer to that is no, then you might want to break those out into 2 or maybe 3 learning objectives. I think principles and purpose, in my opinion, are close enough together that questions about each of them can measure the same basic learning objective, but
Okay.
limitations seems a little bit different in my head, at least. I would like to hear the opinions of others.
Useful. Thank you. Maybe I don't even need principles, maybe just the purpose.
Actually, purpose and limitations could be one learning objective together as
Yeah.
well,
Yeah.
if you take out principles.
I was actually kind of, I'll put my video on. I was actually kind of thinking of it as the opposite. Like I was thinking of just explain the basic principles of copyright in the US. Is this like in relation to higher education and like course design, or
In relation to open licensing.
like OERs and stuff like
Yeah,
that?
yeah, to give a background.
Like
of
Creative
understand-
Commons?
Yeah, exactly.
Because to me, the way I see it is like basic principles can like encompass purpose and limitations. That's kind of the way I feel like that's
Okay.
more broad. That's how I saw it.
So
That's true.
that's another structure you could do. You could have a higher level learning objective and then 2 lower level, what Clee would have called skills below that learning objective, one for purpose and limitations.
Okay.
Because the way I kind of think about it, if you're going to go over something like Creative Commons, like that wouldn't fit under purpose or limitations for me. Like that would be kind of like the basics of what you would need to know about copyright. I don't know. That's kind of how I was thinking of it.
Okay, I'm gonna close all breakout rooms so that we can close out today.
Thank you all. Appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Yes. Thank you for your feedback, Caitlin. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
3 ways one can.
Oh, that's interesting. I must do that one. Or maybe because I just came in, I got the recording notification.
Yeah, that's been going on and off. I'm not sure why. All right. And Danica says, I like them too. Assign says, yeah, I need to reorder them. All right. Thanks everyone who shared, and thanks everyone for your contributions. Looks like we're coming back together. If you didn't get to share and want feedback on your learning objectives, please feel free to reach out to us or post on the discussion boards.
Or come to office hours.
Yes, thank you very much. Or come to office hours.
Okay, everyone is back together.
Awesome. Thank you for all the work on the learning objectives, everyone's reviews, everyone's thoughts, comments on learning objectives. I know everyone is at different stages of drafting their learning objectives. So we hope that this session of peer review and critique would have been helpful for you. And I'll just go through the deliverables for the upcoming week. We have Unit 3, end of unit reflections and end of unit survey due before class next week. We also have the readings, which are cognitive task analysis and assessment, difficulty factor analysis, a paper related to difficulty factor analysis due for next week. And then related to those readings, we have a discussion post activity, which is due for class before next week. Along with that, we also have developing assessments module, which is due. Again, this module is something that you all can refer to. It's a quick module where it talks about different assessment types and drafting different forms of feedback and hints for assessments. We are going to be talking through developing assessments more in our class next week. But then one thing that is not mentioned here, and again will be updated, is learning objectives are due next week. And so these are all the assignments, but then for the project work, we have learning objectives which are due on Saturday. So please draft your learning objectives, and again, for the project topic that you all are working on, and upload it in the same format that you all have uploaded your project topic. Again, those assignments will be open by end of day today for you all to work on. And please let us know if you all have any questions, either by email or during office hours.
Looks like it was a productive session. I'm sorry I missed it.
It was great.
Fantastic. Yeah, the SUNY OER workshop also went really well. So Hal and I were given that 2-hour workshop for tourists, and lots of good engagement there too.
That's awesome. And then I think before we close out the session, any questions or comments that you all might have?
I just want to check in and see if you guys had any availability other than the office hours this week. I'm out of town Friday and I have maybe 10 minutes of things to ask you about.
Yeah, some of us can be available at a time which would work for you. Maybe we can reach out to you by email and find a time.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, Angela.
And
Yeah, I was just wondering, is it okay if I'm using a Microsoft Word document, and that's what I had put my project work, I picked my topic. Can I just add my objectives right onto that same document and upload that into the assignment area?
Sure.
Okay.
In fact,
Thank
that
you.
might even be helpful, because then we'll have more context for when we're looking at your learning objectives.
All right, great, thank you.
Do we want to potentially stick around if anyone who has questions, and if anyone has time, I can do that.
Yeah, I was just going to offer that too. So Angela, if you have questions, I mean, I'm happy to stay on and answer them for you.
Yes, please. Yes, please. But I don't want to bug everybody else.
Well, let's see. Does anybody else have any questions or additional questions or comments they want to give? If not, then we'll
It's Danica. I have a quick one. If we have to miss a session, how should we notify you? Aaron, I had emailed you, I had messaged you through the system earlier, and then my issue resolved itself and I was able to get on
Fantastic.
time. But what's the best way if we do have to miss a session to let one of you know? How should we handle that?
Yeah, I think that's the best way. Like you gave it like a notification through Canvas is how I got that. And then
Okay,
I
so that did come
forwarded-
through on your end?
It did. It did.
Okay, good.
Sorry, I didn't have a chance to respond yet. I only had a minute to like send it over to Tanvi so she knew.
Yeah, no, that's okay. I just wanted to make sure somebody saw it. So if I need
Yeah.
to do it in the future, but then my issue resolved itself and I was able to get on close to 3. So
That's great.
no.
And just so you know, we are recording these sessions. So if you miss one, we can send you that recording if you would like to see it.
Oh, okay, great. Good to know.
Yeah, we actually, I think, even plan to embed them into the course materials that you'll have access to ongoing, actually. So.
Right.
Okay.
I think
All right, thank
that's all
you.
for today.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you,
Bye.
everyone.